Okay, folks, we're not done yet. I thought you'd all like to meet these guys, so we're going to bring them up here and have a chat. This is Roy Kelton Orbison, Roy Orbison Jr. The oldest boy, Wesley Orbison. And our director of the film you just saw, Alex Orbison. I thought we'd have a little chat, and we actually are live streaming this, so we're going to be getting some tweets from some fans who are paying attention, I hope. Alex, why don't you talk about Barbara for a minute and the genesis for this film? She actually began the film before you were involved, right?
Yeah. First of all, thanks every one of you for being here and supporting this. So cool. I would have literally done this just to only see Wesley and Roy's head 25 feet tall. And to hear you guys laughing in the right places, and it really means a lot.
Yeah, that worked good.
Yeah, thank God. This whole thing has come about because Barbara had started this, and she got sick and passed away in 2011, and so when we as brothers got together and had the preliminary talks of what we wanted to do as a family, we decided that we wanted to finish this for her, and not only that, we wanted to make the most deluxe package that we absolutely could, and the documentary was first and foremost with that, and we started her basic outline and did whatever we could to show all of you and everyone, the wonderful making of the album of Mystery Girl, and then behind that, the dynamics of what it took to make the record, and then more importantly, what our dad was like as a human being, and for you guys to get some of those laughs that were going around, of our family household, and the things that we remember and cherish of our dad. So.
And Barbara actually did the Bono interview, right?
Yeah, and Barbara did the Bono interview, and that was the only interview that we actually used from the archives from the 90s, because Bono, I could tell at the end of the interview that he just kind of stopped and that he didn't have any more Roy Orbison stories.
Right. So there you have it.
Yeah, as much as someone else would like to sell a couple of DVDs because they have a new interview with Bono, it was like, we're not going to bug the guy again. He did really good.
Roy, talk about your father's state of mind at the time this record was made. I mean, here he is surrounded by all of these rock and roll superstars all of a sudden. Tom Petty's working with Bob Dylan, he's working with George Harrison, and this whole phase of his life has changed. Did he change?
Oh, well, he had met all of these people so much earlier. He was on tour with the Beatles in '63, so his perspective would be very different than yours of being around a bunch of superstars. He was around a bunch of kids. So I think also Tom Petty, people like Tom Petty and Bruce would have opened for Roy. Bob Dylan, when he was doing Nashville Skyline, I thought he was a burglar. I slammed the door on him because he was a scary-looking guy at the time. And I ran in. I said, Mom, one of the fans are burglars trying to break in the back by the pool. So I was locking Bob out. So these guys, these guys were on a different level by then. So so for him, his frame of mind, he was happy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were. He had a suntan.
Wow.
Yeah, and there were so many people in our lives at that time. I remember, at that time it was Madonna and Sean Penn. He was over at their house playing pool, and it was just like that all the time around there. So how was he? We were busy.
Wesley, talk about the writing of The Way Is Love with Craig Wiseman. Did you have Roy in mind when you wrote it?
The only one.
The only one.
I'm sorry, the only one. Sorry.
Yeah, I knew in advance that he was looking for songs, and
Keep it up.
so I kind of tailored it to what I thought, he might be able to sing.
Mm-hmm. Had he heard any of your songs before that?
No, not originals, no.
It's interesting. Alex, you mentioned a minute ago about the sense of humor that is in this film. What do you want people to take away from the film about Roy?
We just we were honored to give a glimpse into what Roy Orbison was like as a person. You know, with such an incredible career, a lot of the documentaries were achievement based, and then you didn't really you got to see them laughing, but you didn't get to hear what the joke was, kind of. And so we, to let people in, and the overall gentle, way of this guy's soul, as a man. And when I say this guy, I mean your relation to him, not in my dad. I knew what his soul was like, but for you guys to see what his, his way and the gentleness and the, it is interesting. Roy said these guys would fall over themselves around Roy, but then you could see that it was equal footing, and that Roy was equally enamored with Jeff Lynne and Tom Petty and the crew around him, and the stories too with people here like with David and Billy and Steve. It's remarkable that after going through all that, and in the entertainment business, you see a lot of these people and they're schmucks.
No, you don't mean it.
Yeah.
Well, I also feel like that about other artists, that it just disturbs me that we put so much time and energy in so many interviews, and nobody knows, was Elvis smart or not? There's still, what's his favorite color? Even Elvis Presley, most written about person ever, people don't know him 50 years later.
Right.
That bugs me a lot. And so we've been using the soundbite. We're trying to show you the man behind the shades.
Yep.
There you go. Wesley, did you get a new perspective about Mystery Girl working on this? I mean, I know that when I listen to this, I hear a completely different album than I heard 25 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. I always loved it, of course, but getting to work with the brothers together on the track "The Way Is Love" was just indescribable.
Was that difficult? I mean, it sounds emotionally it must have been hard. I would think it would be hard to get through.
There's a it's beyond difficult. There's a part of your psyche that I just had to turn off. I had to just act like I was playing for a regular session, not for my father's.
Alex, you told me you used a kind of a neat technique about. I mean, this album was 25 years ago, and getting people to talk about something they did that long ago. Most people, particularly people who play a lot of sessions, it would be hard to get them to remember. What did you do that helped them?
This is actually my brother Roy. This is a great trick that he had led to me, and was showing someone a picture of our dad, because they have a set story, and so you want to personalize it so they remember. Oh yeah, it was Friends. Oh there's Roy, and Roy had told me that and made a deep impression. And there's about 5 or 10 minutes where the lighting guys always are just screwing with the lights, and it's like
always
dead air when you're interviewing people, and so you're sitting across from one of your heroes, and they're sitting there and they're playing with the lights. So I would take my iPad out, and I had the video, the archive footage that I wanted to use, and I would say, this is the kind of stuff that we're going to be talking about. And they would look and go, oh man, that's incredible, because not only are these guys, Jim Keltner is one of the most recorded studio drummers of all time, and one of the greatest, but they were doing Traveling Wilbury sessions. They were doing the Cloud 9 sessions for George Harrison. They were doing Tom Petty stuff. Jeff Lynne had his own recording going on, and they were doing Mystery Girl all in like the same week, every week, all summer.
Might get a little blurry for you.
Yeah. And so it was great to have the technology of an iPad where you literally can scrub and there's no delay. It was really nice.
And so you sort of jogged their memory using their own footage.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a couple of questions that have come in here. This one I thought was an interesting one. Raindog70 asks, have there been any discussions about making a biopic? And if you had a choice, what actor would you like to play your dad? Anybody? Wesley, what about you, Wesley? First of all, have there been discussions about making a biographical movie?
We talk about it every night.
Well,
Are we going to make it about Wesley's life or Roy's or mine? No, I'm playing. I'm kidding.
I don't think we can tell any of our bios, but
Yeah.
These kind of conversations have been going around since the 70s.
No. Since I went through the MGM contract, the MGM years were 1965 to 1973, and they were contingent on our dad getting a motion picture, which was The Fastest Guitar Alive, and
A masterpiece.
yeah, and the contract was for 3. It was for 3 to 6 records or 5, but the second one was the Roy Orbison story that was supposed to come in 1968.
Yeah.
So since 1968, the
We've been
stories
talking.
there has been the movie in the works.
But as I said, he was saying around 73, it'd be around 75, they were really talking about it, and Martin Sheen was supposed to play it. He had a heart attack while they were filming, what was the Vietnam movie?
Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, and so Roy went down and spent a couple of weeks or days fishing with him, and they discussed the movie. Then later, it was funny, 20 years later, there was buzz about Charlie Sheen. In between, there was Chris Isaac was maybe going to play him. So the actor, people like to play with that, but it might have to be an unknown actor so people can really put their personality. Look
That's
past
an
it.
idea, yeah.
It might have to be unknown so that they can look past who it is, listen to the music. I think the most important thing in a bio that's tricky is to use Roy's original music. You know, the trend now is to use, the actors singing themselves, and
I don't think so.
in this one,
There's only one voice.
so as long as we have the music, the rest won't matter.
To quote the great Bruce Springsteen, and no one sings like Roy Orbison.
That's an absolute amen to that. Speaking of Bruce, Jeremy Parkinson's right. Can you clear up a long-standing bone of contention? Did Springsteen and Roy record together, or did Bruce ever offer Roy a song?
Okay, I got that one, and that is actually a great question. That during the promo in between A Black and White Night and Mystery Girl, Bruce and our dad were very good friends at this point, and so they were hanging out, and Bruce was supposed to submit a song for Mystery Girl, and so our dad was on the news saying, yeah, you know, I'm supposed to get a song from Bruce Springsteen, and Bruce is going to turn in a song, and so a lot of people are waiting for this Bruce Springsteen song, which he never submitted. And so, in short, I think that when those guys got together, they were too busy being best friends to get to work, and behind that, there was literally nothing that we could have put on Mystery Girl that we left behind because we wanted to put everything in the record. So there is no Bruce
That's
song.
all, folks. There ain't no more. Timothy via Facebook asks, were the songs for what later became the King of Hearts album recorded during the Mystery Girl sessions?
There was one song. The original 3 that were recorded just before the Black and White Night started. So they were actually working on Mystery Girl started in '85, and then the actual recorded started in '87 in the summer. And those 3 songs were Dream You, that were written by a couple of great guys that are here tonight, and the Comedians, which was Elvis Costello's song, and then the third one was You're the One, which is the first song on King of Hearts. So King of Hearts does have a lot of material that was based around that time, and there's a song called...
it includes some movie soundtracks.
Yeah.
We pulled from actually a lot of different places, and then
Zabriskie Point and some
No,
other ones.
the later Less Than Zero and Insignificance.
Life Fades Away, and then Barbara already worked up the project. So we had Jeff Lynne do Drove All Night, which was a top 5 hit in '92.
I like that song.
And a couple of others. Katie Lang sang backups on some. So Clarence Clemens, the great saxophonist. We had a lot of
And
still a lot of Roy's friends.
the song that
Robbie Robertson.
The song that we moved to Malibu for was called After the Love Is Gone. That was with Jerry Lynn Williams. And so that was kind of the first song. And what happened was that Roy and Barbara had gone to Malibu, California for a writing session with Jerry, and then they never came back.
You got pulled out of school?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we got the option later when school went back in. So first it was just they had gone. So that was, King of Hearts ended up being its own whole thing because the way they put it together. And you probably will hear more about that later. So.
But it is important that Mystery Girl was not a posthumous album, although it was released after Roy's death.
No, it was done, yeah.
The single You Got It was done. He had chosen the artwork, written thank yous.
Changed the song track list.
I'm going to pick the song order of things. King of Hearts was done posthumously.
Right.
That was 92.
Okay, Wesley, Ricky via Facebook says he saw one of Roy's Harley Davidsons at a Hard Rock Cafe in Phoenix, Arizona. How many Harley Davidsons did Roy have?
That's like how many licks is a Tootsie Pop?
Well, he always had one. It just wasn't always the same one. He did get a bike from the Harley Davidson racing team. I don't know if it was a gift or something he had custom ordered, but I remember it coming to the house and it was in a wooden crate, and he invited me over when he busted the crate open and had his initials on the side and gold leaf, and then the Harley Davidson logo also on the tank with a real pretty jet black with a blue and silver stripe. I remember it. I could paint you a picture of it right now.
And it said It said RKO on the side.
That's right. That was a little logo that he designed himself, and all like a brand, if you will.
And it was out of solid gold too. They had painted
Inlaid with regular.
the initials were a silver leaf, and then the Harley logo was a gold leaf.
Okay, you've probably answered this question a million times, but Beverly via Facebook wants to know, when were the dark glasses become part of the image?
Oh,
how?
All right. We have someone here in the audience who's a dear friend of ours. It's Brandy Goldsboro. And so Brandy is Bobby Goldsboro's daughter.
I know Bobby.
And so, yeah, honey. and so, yeah. And so Bobby actually came by my house the other day, thank you, Brandy. And Bobby told me this story. According to Bobby Goldsboro, as they were taking off and it was cloudy, and so Dad had the clear glasses on, and they went up in a little four-passenger kind of Cessna low-wing thing, and they popped up and the sun was out, so Roy takes his dark glasses and puts them on, and then he took his glasses and set them in the back of the seat. And when I was younger, I always had heard the story from our dad and thought that they were in a bigger plane and he had his reading glasses or something. But according to Bobby, they went up and he put on his dark glasses. And when they got back to the hotel, our dad had called Bobby and said, "Hey, have you seen my clear glasses?"
My real glasses.
Yeah, and so that was 2 gigs before the Beatles tour. And you don't just go get Roy Orbison glasses from like the pharmacy or something. So he didn't have his clear glasses. He had his reading glasses in the dark shades, and then he headlined the tour with the Beatles, and the rest is history.
Dark glasses it was.
More complex. There's always the easy answers, and there's more difficult answers, and this one still is based on the facts of what happened at the time. The story that he just told you was 1963. Roy began 1963, January, February, with Patsy Cline opening up for him on her last tour. Somehow this is missed by all of you guys. But Patsy was opening, so Patsy died March 5th. Roy was on a plane. He would have been a little bit more nervous. That's perhaps even why he lost it, because I know that for a little bit, he was the closest person to Patsy Cline at her death. He'd seen her just a couple of days before, and he had gone through the same thing a bit with Buddy, so I know that affected him a lot. So March 5th, I think, I'm just trying to remember, March 5th, 1963, Patsy Cline had died. So Roy was nervous on the plane for a little bit anyways. And so that probably was one of the reasons that he lost it, especially if he was on a Cessna a couple of days. That scares me just hearing about it.
And he also pointed out that they served a practical purpose because the stage lights are really bright and hot.
Yeah.
And with real thick lenses, it's like focusing a light.
Right.
Down to a point. He said before the shades, he literally couldn't open his eyes
on stage
in front of those lights.
Oh yeah, with the
without
magnification.
just blinding.
Right.
So Patsy Cline in the beginning of March, and then by the end of March, he just had a couple of days, maybe even a week in between, and he was on tour with the Beatles. So that was That's just in
the crossroads.
That's just for you. I was actually just kind of telling you these historical footnotes.
And
that's Roy Springtime.
And then the side note is.
I think Roy told me that story actually.
Yeah. And the side note is, you know, in 1963, Roy Orbison was one of the coolest people on the planet too. So he had to have known that he was wearing sunglasses, and it was cool. You know, he literally said, I went out on stage and I had my dark shades, and we're in England, and the kids were just tearing the house down. And I went out the next night and then went back and got my dark shades. And when he finally had his glasses, he wore them for 2 songs.
Four answers. He knew what he was doing. Yeah.
If you guys want to get confused at any time, then just come over and Roy and I'll tell you stories all night.
I spent my childhood trying to sing along to those records, and of course you can't. And Cecil on Facebook evidently has still not gotten over the voice either, and wants to know, did Roy ever have a vocal lesson?
Where would he have gotten it?
Maybe his father might.
Yeah, Orbie Lee, our grandfather, had to have showed him that
He taught him how to sing "You Are My Sunshine."
You sing.
And Mama's brother, Uncle Kenneth, was also an established guitar player.
Yeah.
So on the weekends they were having guitar pulls and that sort of thing. And they say that Roy was always there.
So family did it.
Yeah, and then our dad got his own radio show at age 6, so he learned fast, whatever it was.
I guess.
TV show at 9.
Yeah,
Mhm.
TV show at 9.
Ivy DeRitter wants to know, was the song Mystery Girl inspired by a real mysterious girl?
Was it inspired by a what?
A real mysterious girl.
We'd have to.
Yeah, we'll ask Bono next time we see him. Hold on, wait. This is even more confusing to the actual what memory is to history, because Roy Jr. was in the room when they were actually. Bono had the song to a certain point, and our dad and Bono sat in the room with Roy Jr. and they worked on the song for several sessions. So the song was basically done, and then eventually our dad must have not felt like he had contributed anything, because he didn't take any of the publishing or anything. But Roy Jr. was there, so.
Yeah, and a lot of the ideas that we were pitching, they ended up in the next song, One, by U2. If you listen carefully to She's a Mystery, and then you listen to the U2 song, One, you'll hear that must have been like a song that Bono was writing with everyone he knew, everywhere he went. I mean, it's completely his thing, you know, but it must have taken him 8 months. But I heard some of the little lines that he was scratching down in the notebook, and then when I heard the song One, it had the interesting drum part. You'd have to listen closely, but even from music historians, the song She's a Mystery, that's kind of like one part one.
Precursor. And if you go on YouTube and then you look at and Google U2 One and then write She's a Mystery, then you can see when they play it live, they'll do the outro and then he'll sing She's a Mystery.
Yeah, U2 still does the song sometimes, and they tag it on the end of One. And I already knew that when I saw it, so that was further. There's my only proof that that's what
There
I was
you
hearing.
go.
But I know they're hearing it too.
I want to know if you guys would like to ask questions. Anybody out there? There's one in the back with a hand up.
Mine's not really a question, it's a comment. I just think it's extremely admirable for brothers of an extremely famous artist to have the ability to come together and be so cohesive with this and not have any argument, fighting for different ideas. It was just a
Yeah, there was no question. He just said that he admired us, for anyone who didn't hear that, and I have to say that we repeat the question back every time for the people that are joining us in the nether region of Twitterland, and thank you very much for that. We are all so similar, and then we are all slightly different, and it's amazing. You know, we still have our brotherly tiffs, and they last like 5 minutes now, and then we're like, I love you, and then hug. Like, it's really it really is incredible. And just to further that, I know that beyond Mystery Girl and everything, and the album and the record, that our dad literally, this would be the most happy thing that ever could make him, would be us sitting here doing this and just being friends.
Two questions about the photos taken Mystery Girl. The photo sessions.
Sure.
Number one, whose hands are in the picture?
Mhm.
And number two, did Roy ever actually sit down and autograph any of those?
Yeah, all right.
Okay, the question. Go ahead. The question is about the photo session for Mystery Girl. And part one of the question was whose hands are in the picture, and part two of the question is, are any of those original photos autographed by Roy?
All right, so the photos, if you see the Mystery Girl Deluxe, we put all the photos associated with it that we could that were in focus, and some are not even in focus. We just wanted to get everything in there. And you can see the model's hands framing our dad's face. And at some point, whether Barbara had got in and put her hands in or not is left, left to the answer we don't know. And so in the famous shots, I have seen other angles of the model framing her face. But then in some of those photos, we do have this distinct thumb that Wesley pointed out that I kind of have, and it does look like Barbara's hand in some of those. And then the other question:
Are any of them autographed?
Okay, see, this is a great question because the misnomer is that our dad got asked to join the Traveling Wilburys, and then it was really successful, and he tried to make a record after the Wilburys, and then he passed away, and everyone finished it for him, and then it was it went on without him. But he actually did have these promo copies. Remember the promo copies for Mystery Girl? He had these things and was playing them for everyone, and that must have been November of 1988. And so, is there an autographed copy of Mystery Girl? And I would say, why wouldn't there be? If these promo copies, it would be important to see. Normally they do somewhere on it, it'll say for promo only, or maybe that'd be a sticker. But it would be important to look at what it was and see. You'd have to reference the pressing. There could be 3 of these autographed copies.
Richard Branson, Jeff Aroff, and Jordan Harris. Yeah, that would be like the record company presidents.
So 3 that we know of, yeah.
Yeah, so you can get one from Richard Branson if you.
Yeah.
It's building a hotel here.
Yeah.
Hey.
In the middle there.
Windsurfer's easily my favorite song he ever did. How long did it take, I guess, when the song was finished being written to the vocals being done? And is it true that he wasn't, I think it was right for him at first?
Which song was it?
No.
Windsurfer.
Windsurfer is no, he liked it, he wrote it.
Yeah.
Do you write a song and think, this isn't for me? No, he wrote
I
that
did.
song.
It has
That
happened.
song, if you listen carefully, there's 2 songs on this album that come a little bit from Roy's personal taste. A lot of people say, what did Roy listen to? He didn't listen to a lot of music because he had seen so many copyright issues and people rewriting songs, and he must have done enough. He didn't want to rewrite people's songs, but he loved ZZ Top, and he liked the Beach Boys, and what you hear in Windsurfer is a little of the song that had been out 18 months earlier that he played when on the sunroof. It was
Aruba.
Tequila, da-da-da, come on, pretty
Aruba.
mama, yeah, Kokomo, whatever it was, that song. And you'll hear that, da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. You'll hear that in Windsurfer. So when I hear that, I'm going like, that's Dad pulling out. That's a little bit. Most people copied Roy, but he also pulled from people. So that song was influenced in his heart. Maybe unconsciously, but by the Beach Boys.
Kokomo.
The other song is Dream You, which got a ZZ Top kind of rumble to it. And when I hear that, I think this is like ZZ Top and Roy Orbison. Windsurfer.
Over here.
My comment, that's a quick question. Knowing and loving Barbara, your mom, and as a father, hearing my daughters do music, I just can't imagine how proud Barbara would be, number one, that you followed up on this, and just to hear boys doing this together. I just think it's, as a parent, there's nothing better, and I know that she must be beaming tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you. No.
The question is, did the Beatles ask to be on tour with Roy Orbison in 1963?
There was, I believe it was Dwayne Eddy was slotted in for a little package tour. Roy was going over there anyways, and they kind of melded together.
Dwayne got Derek's in the back. Derek, was it Dwayne Eddy?
Okay. Yeah, so it was Dwayne Eddy was originally, but this is for a package tour. So,
yeah, and it was a package tour. Dwayne Eddy actually got sick before, and Roy had already gone over once and didn't tour and was just eyeballing it out. And the Beatles were avid Roy Orbison fans, and there was a tape of them doing Dream Baby, the Roy Orbison
1962,
Cindy
their first
Walker
radio
song.
performance.
Yeah.
1962, they did Dream Baby. And John Lennon was the big Orbison fan in that group.
And so the big thing is that there was a headlining tour, and so Roy got hired on to take the Duane Eddy, the headline slot from America, and by the time he had actually gotten over there, the Beatles had absolutely exploded.
Bribe people, had girls running through,
Yeah.
the posters were everywhere.
Yeah.
They kind of stole the show a little bit,
Yeah,
but it was
yeah,
okay.
yeah, and so
It was the Beatles.
and so actually, you know, there was a debate over, you know, who was going to close the show in typical rock and roll fashion, and then eventually my dad said, you know, I'll open the show, no problem, and then he did 17 encores of. 17 encores of Running Scared, I think, and so they actually had to hold him back, and that was the story, the legend now. And so the actual facts of this matter is that our father was working for the New Musical Express, the NME, or the Melody Maker, and Derek would know too, but I'm not going to ask him. And so our dad was a journalist for this, and there's an actual article in 1963 with our dad with the clear glasses because the dark ones hadn't hit yet, and it says, "The Big O says the Beatles could be tops in America." And then it literally says, first line, you know, the Roy says that if the boys keep their hair the same and keep dressing in those suits and make it onto a national television show in the States, that they could be just as big in the States as they are in England. And I looked at the date of that and my eyes crossed like, oh my God.
People always claim to have something with the Beatles, but Roy would have been one of the first Americans to see the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, period. So
Cool stuff.
He was there early.
And Bobby Goldsboro was on that tour, and he wasn't. I don't know if he was actually playing with the band. I think Dad just took him for like a security blanket, and then Bobby's own career blew up at the same time, and Dad was always really proud of that.
Brenda Lee had performed with them at the Star Club in Hamburg earlier, but
Yeah.
Oh,
did you want to say something, Wesley?
Pardon?
Did you want to say something?
Oh,
Didn't they have the same Taylor? Didn't Roy introduce them? Their Taylor?
To who's Taylor? Oh, yeah, that
Oh,
kind
the
of thing.
Beatles?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
That sounds likely. You know, I didn't know his Taylor, but perhaps.
I know their boots were awfully similar.
They're
They're little
suits-
short.
They're suits from the Shea Stadium.
Yeah.
So your dad introduced them.
That sounds very, very likely.
First number one, please me, they said it was the Roy Orbison.
Yeah. And Love Me Do is quite a bit like Candyman.
Right.
Here's the super embarrassing one. My own girlfriend, when I said we're getting the iconic riff, and Joe had us at the Musicians Hall of Fame, my own girlfriend hummed "You Say It's Your Birthday." Do 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 do. Do do do. No. They're pretty close.
All right. Anybody else?
Let's call up the guy.
All right.
Are we going to call up Steve Cropper?
Is Steve still here? Come on, Steve. Come up.
Yes. What about Billy?
And David and Billy?
Oh, David, yeah. I'll give David my seat.
Billy, are you still here? There you are.
Billy Burnette, everybody.
Steve,
Good job, you guys.
you have played on so many incredible records and written so many amazing songs.
Okay.
Was it easy to remember one that took place 25 years ago?
Was that last week?
Right.
Well, you're not going to ask me this, but I'm going to tell it anyway. I got to be pretty good friends with Roy, and I found out something in this film that documented all that. He just treated everybody equal. He literally had no ego, and we really hit it off.
You co-wrote
And,
together, did you?
It was unfortunate that he left us before we had a chance to go in the studio and demo anything, but he and I wrote 5 songs together. And there's only been one of them that's ever been recorded. Unfortunately, he's sitting there, and I came up with this title. It's nothing that I'm proud of, but it was interesting. And I came up with this idea, Last Call for Rock and Roll. And I could see all of the history makers of this great music leaving us. There's still some of us out there, some of them, that started all this. I mean, people like Roy were they were gods to us. They were our rock gods when I started. And you know, I was very fortunate to be able to meet Elvis Presley, to be at Graceland, to see all that. And I was just a young, snot-nosed kid, and he wanted to know, what's this young guy doing in my house? But I was there because I was friends with some of his bodyguards. And the reason for that was they liked to date young girls, and I was going to school with some of those girls. That was the connection. And then later in life, I got to meet the great Roy Orbison. And I meant what I said. When I got to be around him and hear him sing, it didn't matter about his age. He still had the voice of a teenager, of a 17, 18-year-old, and I really meant that. It's amazing that he had that. But to compliment him and the guys, I mean, this film is fantastic and it's really great. But Roy was such a nice guy. That's the best I can share with you guys, that he was one of the nicest people that I had ever met. And I meant it when I said he was one of those light bulbs. I personally got to see people jump counters to get to him. And I felt like all of a sudden I needed to be his bodyguard. But once they got there, they were just so polite. They just wanted to get there to say, I saw Roy Orbison. We hung out, and I remember a guy running out of a filling station. I stopped to get some gas, and he and I were going up to Big Bear Mountain to write some songs. And this guy come out, and I'm putting gas in the car, and Roy's sitting up there, you know, and he comes out and he says, I hate to bother you, but he says, is that Roy Orbison in the front? I said, well, yeah, you know, I can't lie to anybody. This guy I thought was going to have a heart attack in front of me. And so that's the way he was a god to everybody that loved music, and he was everybody's best friend backstage. It was just unbelievable. That's the best thing I can say about Roy Orbison.
Billy, did you know him through your dad or your uncle from your Memphis days, or did you have his records growing up?
I had met him, you know, as a kid, you know, but when David told me about the project, we wrote it. But the first thing Roy said to me when I'd seen him, he knew my dad and uncle. We're all from Memphis, you know. And he said he was at a radio station one day, and the elevator opens up, and there's my dad and uncle in a fist fight, and he's with Elvis. So that was about the first story he told me. And David and I just had so much fun with him, teaching them the song. You know, after writing the song, I mean, I think the only time I've ever written a song besides myself, or you know, for somebody that we wrote, you know, particularly that song, Dream, All I Can Do Is Dream You. And we had so much fun, and I'll never forget the day him and Barbara showed up at the studio to do the track, because I played on the track, and had Rick Vito with us, and T-Bone Burnette, and was producing, and Jim Keltner back on the drums. And they came into Ocean Way in California. Beautiful day, as usual. And these kids were making fun of Roy. They were going, look, there's Elvis. And one kid, because they're in the convertible. Roy and Barbara come in from Malibu, and one kid says to the other, that's not Elvis, that's Roy Orbison. And so they told me that story. So it's just amazing, you know. They were the really great people, and I love and miss them both. And then I was a writer with Barbara for her company for about 12 years. So,
and that company is still with us, by the way, still working. And David?
Appropriate title.
Yep. Your dad had worked with Roy, right?
Yeah, my dad, I brought him, he's over there. And he,
all right, Jim.
He produced an album on Roy when Roy was on MGM. And I'd said in the movie they were talking about his sense of humor and why that really struck me. I remember being a young teenager and Roy coming over to the house for dinner and telling a story about himself that was incredibly funny, but the humor was because of the embarrassment that he had gone through and how easy he talked about that. And I made such an imprint on me because I went on in my own career and worked, you know, been able to work with a lot of big famous people, and I always was so taken with Roy's ability to just laugh at himself and a sense of humor. And like somebody had said in the interview there, he didn't have an ego. Mm-hmm. So here was this amazing voice, one of these great voices, but you never felt like, I'm Roy Orbison and you're not. It was never that. You know what I mean? He was just another guy, So.
Did you and Billy play his records before you wrote the song? Like, just remind yourselves of
No, we didn't. You didn't have to.
Probably not. David and I at the time were working together. He'd produced, I think, maybe 2 records on me at the time.
Yeah.
And we'd become best friends out there. He'd move out to California and said, hey, they're looking for something for Roy. And kind of every time David and I got together to do that, we'd always have a lot of fun. But I noticed in the movie Roy was smoking once in a while, and he never wanted to smoke cigarettes from both. So we went upstairs to the
Eagle's Nest.
To the Eagle's Nest for us to teach him the song. He goes, no, tell Barbara. Lit up a cigarette. And we taught him the song, and that's when in the thing where he's singing like, all I can do is really low and really soft. And David and I are going, wow, is this going to work on him or what? And he goes, I can see you're a little worried. I'll put the dog to it when I get in the studio, boys, I promise.
Great line.
And he did, he was quite a singer. And I had to sing the ghost vocal for him, which was a nightmare.
As a writer or a producer, and Cropper will say the same thing, you learn to like a chameleon, you learn to channel the artists that you're working with. You kind of become them in your mind. And so musically, when you create, it's almost like you're them. If I was them, what would it be? It was so easy for Billy and I to channel Roy, and we didn't have to listen to anything. And Roy's voice is so imprinted in your head.
Yeah, that's
so you
true.
just kind of close your eyes and you try to become Roy as best as you can, and that's how we started the song.
It was pretty quick. I don't hardly remember even writing. I mean, we just kind of one of those things that just kind of fell out,
I had a little.
Of course, I don't remember a lot about them days. I mean, I joined Fleetwood Mac, I think, the next day or the day I was in the studio.
It was a big year.
with Roy, I wish I had more days like that. We had a lot of fun though, and then we continued to have fun.
Billy Burnette, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Cropper and David Malloy.
How about to the boys here for doing such a great movie? God, great work, you guys.
One more time for the Orbisons.
Robert Oermann, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Bob.
You can tell he knows how to use a microphone. These wonderful, innocent children of Roy's, they all had the microphones down here somewhere. They didn't, Wes, you really didn't know what quite to do with that, but, you can tell we've done this forever. And thank you. Thanks for the great song I got to play on. Thank you.